Hi, welcome to Bava Kama Daf Bet Amud Aleph. In this series of videos, I will read you a piece of the Mishnah or the Gemara. You'll have access to the source sheet in haiku, and there'll be some questions for you to answer after you watch the video and see the way that I've marked it up for you. We're going to start from the Gemara following the Mishnah, although I've included the Mishnah on this source sheet. Midikatani avot, miklal deika toladot. From the fact that the Mishnah says avot, this teaches us that there are toladot. So the Mishnah begins with the words Arba'a avot nizikin. There are four large categories. There are four head nizikin. There are four major types of damage. And the Gemara is saying from the fact that the Mishnah teaches us avot, this implies that there must be toladot. There must be subcategories. There must be things that fit into those larger categories. And I'm going to set this off a little bit. I'm going to put it in red. Red, as you'll see, dark red, is my color for challenges. Oh, except I actually don't want to highlight it. I actually just want to change the font color. This is going to be my challenging color. Toldotehan ki yotze behen, olav ki yotze behen. Are the subcategories, or the toladot, just like the larger categories, or are they not just like the larger categories? Kiyotze behen would mean the same, and lav kiyotze behen would mean not the same. In other words, why are there these larger categories? What's the purpose of having subcategories, or what could be the purpose of having subcategories that fit beneath the larger categories? Gabe Shabbat, Tznan, Avot melachot ara'im chaser achad. Regarding Shabbat, we learn in a Mishnah, that's what Tznan means, we learn in a Mishnah, there are 40 minus 1 avot melachot. There are 40 minus 1, meaning 39, major categories of melacha, of creative labor that may not be done on Shabbat. This is an attempt to begin to address this question. So I'm putting it in green. Green is my answer color. I have tznan bolded because it's a keyword. And these words really come from the Mishnah. And so I'll put those in red. Avot, miklal deika toladot. Avot, they are called major categories. They're called avot. This implies that there are toladot. Toldotehan ki yotze behen, lo shna av chatat, v'lo shna tolada chatat. Lo shna av skila, v'lo shna tolada skila. And their subcategories, the toladot, are like them. They are like these larger categories. It doesn't make a difference whether you did an av or a tolada for the purposes of bringing a chatat, of bringing a sin offering. If you did something, if you transgressed accidentally on Shabbat, b'shogeg, and it doesn't matter whether you transgressed an av melacha or a tolada. Lo shna, it makes no difference whether it was an av, you bring a chatat, and it doesn't make a difference whether you transgressed a tolada, you bring a chatat. Lo shna av skila, v'lo shna tolada skila. It doesn't matter whether you transgressed an av on purpose, you would receive skila, and it doesn't matter whether you transgressed a tolada on purpose, you would still receive skila. In other words, this is the continuation of the answer. You might see this as a clarification or as a continuation of the answer. I'll put it like this, so you see that it's a clarification of the answer. It sounds like in Shabbat, toladot and avot are the same. It doesn't really make a difference. You get the same punishment no matter which one you transgressed. Umay ika bein avot tolada. And what is the difference? Mai means what? What is the difference between an av and a tolada? This is a question. We want to know, given that they have the same punishment, why bother having one versus the other? Nafkamina ti'ilo avit shtei avot bahari hadari, inami shtei toladot bahari hadari, mechayev, akol chada v'chada. the nafkamina, the practical ramification, is that if you did two avot at the same time, Bahari Hadadi together, alternatively, if you did two toladot together, you are obligated for each and every one of them. In other words, if you do two different avot, or two toladot that emerge from two different categories, then you are obligated on each and every one. V'ilu avid avitolada didei lo mechayev elachad. But if you did an av and a tolada of that av, so one of the large category headings and one of its subcategories, you're only chayav once. In other words, the practical ramification of the av and tolada distinction is that you can make things fall into one category, and if you transgress two things that both fall into the same category, you are only chayav on one count of transgression, chayav one korban, one count of skila. Ula Rabbi Eliezer, and for Rabbi Eliezer, D'mechayev atolada bimkom av, amai karile av. For Rabbi Eliezer, who apparently has a different position, D'mechayev atolada b'makom av, he would obligate someone, he would make someone chayav for a tolada, even if they did it at the same time as an av. In other words, he would not agree with this psak. He would say that you're chayav twice if you did both a tolada and an av. Amai karile av. Why? Amai means why. Why call it an av? Again, if this punishment distinction doesn't exist, and even if you do an av and a tolada, you're still chayav twice, even though they fell into the same category. So for him, for his position, which is an outlier, why would you need to make a distinction between av and tolada when it comes to Shabbat? This is a question, and so I'm going to make it question colored. The amai karila tolada, and why call it a tolada? Again, why have this distinction? Why have both categories if actually they get the same punishment? We learn that up here. Right? Both av and tolada get the same punishment. Doesn't make a difference. Tolada and av are treated equally seriously. And Rabbi Eliezer doesn't even agree that if you do an av and a tolada from the same category at the same time, you only get one punishment. He would punish you twice. So the answer is, Hach tehava b'mishkan chashiva karile av. Things which were done in the Mishkan have greater importance, and we call them an av malacha. Hach lo havi b'mishkan chashiva karile tolada. So those are of lesser importance, and we call them toladot if they were not done in the Mishkan. So that's the distinction between av and tolada. Not a practical ramification, but they're just given different names based on how we derived that melacha. That's our discussion of Shabbat. Now we know that there is some difference between av and tolada on Shabbat. According to most positions, there's a difference in ramification. If you do an av and a tolada together, you're only chayav once, as opposed to doing an av and a tolada from two different categories. And for Rabbi Eliezer, there's no practical ramification of difference, but they are derived from different sources. Gabe tum'ot, when it comes to tum'ah, regarding impurities, tznan, we learn in a Mishnah, avot hatumot, hasheretz v'hashichvat zera v'tamemet. There are the avot hatum'ah, the major categories of tum'ah are sheretz, creepy crawly things, shichvat zera, which is semen, and the impurity of a dead body. So let's call this another answer, another attempt to address the question of how or whether the toladot in the case of nizikin are the same as or different from the avot. Because again, we assume there are toladot since there are avot, but we don't know whether the toladot and avot are the same or different. So we looked at Shabbat as a case, now we're going to look at Tumah as a case. Tolotehen lav kiyotze behen. In this case, I'm going to put this in red because it came from Mishnah. In this case, toldotehen lav kiyotze behen. Their toladot are not like the avot. Di'ilu av metameh adam v'kelim, v'ilu toladot Ochlinu mashkin mitameh, adam b'kelim lo mitameh. So the Toledotehen are not like the Toledot, are not like the Avot, because an Av Tuma, one of these major categories of Tuma, can render impure, can transmit impurity to people, Adam, and also to Kelim, to vessels, to pots and pans and dishes and all kinds of things. V'ilu Toledot, ochlinu mashkin mitameh. However, the toladot, the lesser categories, the subcategories, can transmit tuma to food and drink, but they cannot transmit tuma to people and vessels. Hachamai. Literally, this question translates to here, what? So here again, here is a reference to our Mishnah, our subject in our Gemara. And mai means what? So the question that I'm going to leave you with, and that I'm going to ask you to do for homework, in addition to a few other questions that are listed, is can you summarize, please, what exactly is the Gemara's question in this section? I'm going to call these two words the end of the question that this Gemara is asking about the Mishnah. Can you summarize what exactly the question is? We'll stop here.